cares what you have to say. But what if I told you that is a lie? This podcast is centered around the highs and lows of being a creative, entrepreneur life, and specifically those working a 9 to 5 while balancing their creative career. I'm your host, Lola Nychole, creative director, designer, stylist, visual artist, and engineer, and I'm here to give you the inside scoop on how to maintain, develop, and balance your creativity with an emphasis on community. And this podcast is powered by Friends with Imagination. So, y'all, listen. Each episode of this podcast is centered around one word, and we break that word down essentially on how it affects us in our creative world. And so I did a lot of thinking about the first word that I wanted to use, and ironically enough, it's a word that I feel like has definitely molded me as an artist. So the word for the first episode of this podcast, y'all. Wow. Can we just take a minute? Oh my God, I'm sorry. But the word for this podcast is silenced. And the reason why I chose that word is that I really feel like your voice when it comes to your art is pretty much tethered to your soul. In order for your art to really reach its maximum potential, I do feel like that your soul and your art have to be in harmony. And that really starts with you exercising your voice and honestly being an advocate for your voice, for your art, I'm sorry. So yeah, also I it's kind of funny. I love Erykah Badu, and so I know when she like starts her concerts off, she's always like, "Sisters, how y'all feeling? Brothers, y'all all right?" And I don't know. I usually have my incense burning, but they're not burning right now, so that's unfortunate. However, we're going to go ahead and get into the breakdown of the word silenced. So the first point that I want to talk about is that finding your voice helps you advocate for your art. And true enough that your art definitely speaks for itself. You know, that's why we attend museums to allow the art to speak to us. But I feel like at that point, the artist was very much aware that they have to articulate something, and that being their voice pretty much. And so once you establish confidence within yourself, I really feel like your art is a reflection of that, right? So if you walk into rooms and you can't even vouch for yourself, it's like, okay, how am I going to vouch for my art? If I can't negotiate what I think that my art is worth or what I'm worth, how am I really doing myself a service and those around me who essentially enjoy my art? And I feel like once you establish that sense of self and you speak up for yourself and you're no longer silenced, that pours over into your art because it's just really authentic and it's raw and it's real. And I think because we live in such a digital age where everything is pretty much like, oh, I gotta like hurry up and post all this content so I can make money and monetize off of it. And it's like, yeah, like I do think a part of our purpose is using our gifts because that's in which we're supposed to make income. I will die on that hill. But at the same time, I feel like it's important to do it because you want to do it. And all that money and all that, whatever you want afterwards will come, but you have to establish that with yourself. And also, I feel like finding your voice helps you strengthen like your relationship with your art. And I feel like a lot of us as creatives have found ourselves in places where it's like you get really, really excited about an idea and then you end up like sending it to a friend and they're like, oh, I would tweak this and I would tweak that and I would tweak that. And it's like, okay, as artists, yeah, we're open to constructive criticism, but at the same time, like that is your intuition. And that's like your soul pretty much trying to get something out. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a different relationship that it's honestly like when you have a dream and you're sharing it to somebody and they are just like, okay, you know what I mean? So I feel like when you establish like that communication with yourself and you stand up for yourself in what you believe in, that shows in your art. Like that vulnerability in what your morals show in your art. I will also die on that hill. I think that's just something that just happens. And even with that, as you move along in the industry, I feel like you will find out what you want and what you don't want. You know what I mean? I feel like once you find out what you want and what you don't want, it just makes things a little bit easier to navigate. Like you won't settle for certain things, and some things won't even come up in negotiation because people already know before they get to you that based on previous interactions with people and just scoping you, because people definitely, they scout and they watch, they'll know that, like, oh, they're not even going for that. And that's going to eliminate and alleviate a lot of problems that I feel like you'll come across in the art world. Like for me, I feel like some people don't even bring certain things to me because they know that's not what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? And even just, I want to talk to the younger models. You'll pretty much figure out very quickly what you like and don't like when you're trying to grow that portfolio, and what realm of photography and modeling that you want to go into. Like, do you want to be, and honestly, I was gonna say no shade, but this is hella shade. Young models, when you first start out, I'm gonna take a deep breath. Please make sure that you bring, people to your shoots as well. And you'll find out what type of modeling that you like. And best believe, very quickly, I don't want any of y'all getting caught up in the body oil photographers who just do that. If that's your realm and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But that's just a forewarning. But we're gonna move on. Um, but also, like, imagine if you didn't speak up. And honestly, I said move on, but we're gonna go back to that point. Um, I've seen a lot of people, by using their voice, and I will say, being an artist and a creative is not 100% rainbows and unicorns all the time. You know what I mean? And so many models have had to speak up about their treatment from photographers because they use their voice. And so, with that being said, like, imagine if they didn't do that. Imagine if you didn't speak up when you saw ill treatment of something and it basically spilled over into somebody else. And even with that being said, I want to touch on Taraji P. Henson and how she recently spoke up about her treatment in Hollywood, basically, and how she's had to negotiate and fight pretty much for her salary and her rate. And that's a prime example about how it spills over into your art, because now that she has, like, basically solidified her voice and she's speaking out on that, oh, best believe, like, that's going to transpire into her other projects. So honestly, real quick, I know this lady will probably never ever hear this, but shout out to you, Taraji, because you have now set the tone and the pace for those coming after you, just as much, as Monique did as well, using your voice. Oh my gosh, like that. That's a very good point to make. You know what I mean? Use that voice, speak up for yourself, speak up what you know that you're worth, and don't really negotiate that if you don't want to. There is no negotiation when it comes to that. Um and the next point is speaking to your inner child. And I don't want to trauma dump, but it just seems like a lot of creatives that I've ran into have gone through some amount of trauma in their younger years. And at least for me, I will say that me having to go through that shadow work and that inner child work, that has helped me grow as an artist as well. Not even also in the sense of like going to therapy, which I definitely do, but in the sense of like all the ideas that I had when I was younger, like, rolled over. You know what I mean? Like, my last shoot that I did, I literally had like this big old thing of paint and I just like poured it out. And if you could have seen my face light up, because it's like, oh my God, like, as kids, that's all we wanted to do. Play in the dirt, mud, paint, all that stuff. And it's like, you really feed that, because even though whatever age you are right now, you're just a grown child. Okay? I just feel like and especially if you're a creative, like, you are a grown child. And even with that, like, people would always tell me, like, Lola, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't really know what I can be doing. And I always tell them, like, who did you need when you were a child? And also with that, what did you do when you were a child? Me personally, when they first came out with them desktop computers, I'm sitting over there Googling Ralph Lauren's address. Really, it was just a store in New York, child. I was making stuff up. But I Googled this man's address and I made this little design, probably terrible, and I mailed it. Don't even know if I put a stamp on it. But the intention of me being younger and designing clothes, knowing that's what I wanted to do, and here I am now, years later, still pursuing that dream and designing clothes and just overall doing things as an artist. I think this plant, just whatever. Um, Doing things as an artist, that really helped me. And I go back to what I did as a kid and what I really love to do, and that pretty much just rolled over into my life. So whatever you did as a kid that you really wanted to do, I will always tell people go back to that and pursue that before the world told you who you were supposed to be and that you couldn't do it. Before you were tampered with, before your mind was molded into something else, and that's when you're the most malleable as a child, you know? So go back to that and figure out where was your voice faulty, because that's going to feed you now as a grown child, aka an adult. You know what I mean? So that's really important. And even with that, I want to say, moving to the next point, that a lot of this stuff is not going to be easy. And I don't want to make it seem like, oh, well, using your voice is going to be the easiest thing in the world. Like, it's really probably not going to be that easy for you. Because it wasn't easy for me, and it wasn't that easy for those that I see like day to day in my life as creatives, like those who I come into contact with and we share stories. It's always been something, you know. And I think it's amazing because people have such a level of vulnerability, and so they'll come to me and they'll talk to me about like their childhood and how it affected them. And honestly, I am the perfect person to talk to about that, because let me tell you, in another episode, we're gonna get into that. So yeah, it's just muscle memory. You're learning to trust your instincts. Like every time you have an idea and you execute, that's you trusting yourself every single time, and your art is gonna reflect in that, because it's making yourself stronger. It literally is like working a muscle because you're doing it over and over and over again. I literally had this talk with one of my friends today. Shout out to Chauncey, and we were just saying how he wants to get to a point where it's like driving a car. And I was like, explain that to me. And he was just saying that like driving a car is like such an innate thing. And that goes to my next point. It's an innate behavior. Like at that point, you know how to do it. Like you get in the car, you know, okay, put that thing in reverse, park, whatever you got to do, and you drive. And so we were just sharing that that's now how like we want to get with our careers. And even now I will plan a photo shoot like in my sleep. And at first I used to think that that was like me rushing, or I'm not like checking off the boxes and crossing the t's, dotting the i's. And it was like, no, like you've just done this so many times now that you don't second guess yourself. I'm going to say that again. You don't second guess yourself. And so that's really important. The more you do it over and over and over again, your body's going to understand, okay, we trust this. We're good. This is our art. We've put intention in. We've looked over it. We've checked off everything. Everything has a purpose. Bought the outfit, you know, got the equipment, all this stuff. You're good to go. That's the point where you want to get at, is that it's just an innate thing to you. And I mentioned this lady earlier, love her to death, Erica Badu. She had this quote. I don't know it like I didn't actually like write down the quote, but I summarized what she said, and pretty much she was just saying that like, you know, it gets to a point where you have to basically brainwash yourself and just tell yourself every day when you wake up, like, I'm the ish. I'm that girl. I'm him. I got it. It's on me. Actually, nah, it ain't even on me. It's in me. So it's like you have to tell yourself this over and over and over again, because you're going to start believing it. And I hate how people talk down on affirmations, but affirmations are real. Whatever you tell your brain is what it's going to believe. So why would you not think that you telling yourself every morning how good you are, how blessed you are, how grateful you are, and thank God for what you have and what's on the way, that that's not going to impact you in a positive way? You know what I mean? So it's like, if you are starting something new, a project, and you're like, oh, I don't even know if I'm good enough, like I'm really gonna mess this up. I promise you, you're gonna mess it up, because you're going into that new little project that you have with that mindset. So change your mindset, and everything else will change, and that's the whole entire point. But when you start trusting your instincts and you start speaking up for stuff, even when you get in spaces where you're working with a team and you know you have a fantastic idea, and yes, not all ideas are received or whatever the case may be, but there's still a point where I believe in collaboration 110%. Some of my best projects have came from collaboration. And so when you get in those rooms and you shrink yourself and you don't say your idea, or you think your idea isn't good enough, like just start putting it out there. And if it gets shut down, it gets shut down, but that's not a reflection really of you. It's just maybe it wasn't the right time, the right environment. But even if it's an idea that you are 110% and your intuition is telling you, your discernment is telling you, Holy Spirit is telling you, push it. Don't let anybody little bro you, little sis you. And I'm gonna speak for the women right now in the art game, in the industry, whatever, man, all around the world. Don't let these people punk you out. Don't ever let these people. I don't care how attractive you are. I don't care how smart you are. Do not let these people punk you out. I'm gonna say it again. Do not let these people punk you out. Say what you gotta say. Say what you gotta say, and stand in that, and know that that's really important. And also, like I said, be so confident that you give yourself no choice. That is your reality. Your brain has no choice but to accept that reality because you keep feeding it. You know what I mean? And I tell people, every time that you have a dream that's like nudging you and like poking at you, the first thing you think about when you wake up, when you go to sleep, when you're at your 9 to 5 and you're thinking about that, like, push that. That's what you need to be pushing, because that's what your soul is trying to get you to create. So that really, really big project, those little ones are going to get you there. And I will say this, I asked somebody a very long time ago if they think that big opportunities would be visually big building blocks per se to get you to the top, and little opportunities being little building blocks that add up across, that eventually will add up to a big one. And they were like, no. And I agree with that. Everything that you do, every prep, every step is equal, because you could not get to those big opportunities without doing the small ones, the sketching every day, doing a photo shoot every week, painting every week, every day, whatever it is. You can't get to those big opportunities without the small ones that get overlooked. So in my opinion, the ones that are not talked about a lot or behind closed doors, those are the big ones. Everybody's gonna see you at award shows. Everybody's gonna see you get 1 million subscribers. Everybody's gonna see you in a gallery. Everybody's gonna see you in a magazine, but nobody is gonna know what it took for you behind closed doors to get to those big points. So honestly, um, I know I kind of like detoured, but that's just a very important part that I wanted to add, because again, that's a muscle memory thing. So, yeah, all those building blocks is just going to get you to where you need to go, and that's just how you look at it, you know? So, take everything with a grain of salt and do your absolute best, but like I said, give yourself no choice. Know that you're great. Recite those things every morning, every day. Pray to God every morning, every day. And I'll share with you, yeah, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but there was a prayer that I saw on TikTok, and I say it every morning, and I kind of modified it to my own liking. But essentially, I just tell God, and if you believe in a higher power, divine, whatever it is for you, I always just tell them, thank you for waking me up this morning. And I place my physical, mental, financial, creative, whatever in your hands, and I trust you, and I still believe. God, please show me how good it can get. And with you, I am everything. Without you, I am nothing. And that within itself gives me the drive every morning to continue as a creative and do what he all called us here to do, is be creative. Because let's be honest, he created us, he created the world, and everything in between it. So keep that in mind as well. Have something to cling to spiritually. And so the next point is how much value it adds to your life. When you start having that confidence, not just physically, but like verbally, and you speak up, you articulate your thoughts, you don't talk fast, you speak with intention, you let people know, that is adding value to your life. People are really gonna respect you, but most importantly, you're going to respect yourself. You're gonna go home and be like, I did the right thing today. I spoke up for that offer. I spoke up for that person. I spoke up for myself. And that's going to roll over into that. And when, like I said, it kind of, the points are starting to go together, but it's true. Like, when you truly start speaking up for yourself, it starts looking differently for your life and then for your art, because now, like I said, you're not questioning, oh, is this good enough? Oh, people don't want me to speak out on things politically in my art, or nobody cares about what I have to say. That people literally do. I know it. The whole point of that hook was to get your attention, to say that people really do care what you have to say, honestly. And they can act like they don't, but why do we read blogs? Why do we look at the shade room? Why do we keep up with celebrities? Why are we on TikTok looking for opinions? Why do we care about comments on Instagram? Because we care what people have to say. It's human nature. And we can walk around and act like tough dogs and stuff, but I ain't no tough dog. And sticks and stones may break my bones, but words never hurt me. Words hurt. Anyway, so it's gonna add value to your life, and it's a domino effect. And I will say this: one or two things. People will either be intimidated by you, or they will be inspired by you. But that's not up to you. The choice is yours. You know what I mean? So do what you do and live your life, because people are gonna say what they want to say anyway. Oh, your art is very controversial. Sometimes stuff is controversial, but that's between you and God, okay? But if that's your art, like that's what you need to do. Like if that's on your soul and on your spirit to do so, you are being called to share that piece of art in that perspective that's in your head. That's all art is perspectives. But there's so many different outlets to that perspective, whether if it's music, making beats, drawing, painting, sewing clothes, modeling, photography. And I know I'm missing a whole lot more: knitting, crocheting, baking. There's so many things, hair, makeup. Like, that is just your perspective in which God is telling you, and your soul is telling you what you need to be creating and how you need to create it. So, yes, it's going to add value to your life, and it's going to be a domino effect. And you set the pace for that, because, like I said, people may act like they're not watching. Baby, people are watching. They always watch, okay? That's why Instagram is so weird now, but that's a different conversation for another time. And so, yeah, like I had said earlier too, you're adding value to your life spiritually. Okay, it's gonna make sense, and I truly believe that creating is a spiritual thing. You are taking something from your mind that came from a higher source. You have a vision, and you use your hands and you make it come to life. That is a spiritual thing. That is literally no joke at all. I don't care what nobody. And then sometimes too, like I said, that art is not always rainbows and Pegasus and flower gardens and shit. Like, it can be bad. Like, a lot of the stuff that I've created has came from a place of desperation and trauma. All art does not come from a place of sitting in the studio, bumping music, dancing around, throwing paint everywhere. Those are medical commercials about prescriptions, drugs. I'm sorry, but that's not real life, is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes stuff gets dirty, but when you realize that you created something in a dark space as well, and you came out of that and you can see it tangibly, and sometimes the most beautiful pieces of art have came from the most darkest places in a person's life. I forgot his name. Didn't Van Gogh, somebody cut off his ear? Like, come on now. Like, stuff is just not what people think it is sometimes when it comes down to art. So do not feel guilty if you are creating from a space that is unfamiliar for you and it's dark. But always remember too that sometimes you may not always create from that space. There will be times where stuff is Pegasus and rainbows and butterflies and everything. I had to learn that too, because I was really confused. Like, how am I happy and I'm creating right now? Those two things can definitely coexist. So don't just automatically associate that with living in trauma. And like I said, with that vulnerability and alchemizing that is living in your truth. And one of my other favorite people in the world, have not met him, but hey Tyler, I love Tyler the Creator, because one thing that Tyler has done since the beginning of time, when he was smacking mannequins out hanging outside of windows, is that he is literally himself to the fullest. You cannot come up to Tyler and tell Tyler anything about Tyler. Not about his art, not about himself. And that's at least what I get when I see him. And that's so funny, because honestly, Tyler, he lives so authentically that his art is so authentic. And I know people keep saying that's the theme of 2024. That has been the theme of life, is to be authentic and not like the next person, and not just see an idea on Pinterest and quote unquote recreate it, but you do the same thing. Be authentic. That is living in your truth. When you speak up for yourself and what you do, and you don't give people any room to tell you who you are and who you are not, you are pushing that envelope and you are living in your truth authentically. And like I said, your art will be original because you are original. Everybody in this world is original. That's just how the cookie crumbles. Okay, so even with that, like I said, like that's Tyler's truth. That's not my truth. But going back to a few points before, is when I was saying about the domino effect and adding value to your life, and people either are intimidated or inspired. When I see Tyler, I am inspired because he's doing what he needs to do as a creative. And I think honestly, not trying to be, high vibrational or anything like that, but you are elevating the vibration of your community because they see you and they're like, dang, like if he's doing that, then I can do that. My ideas are not too big or too weird or too strange or too unorthodox. Child, do that idea. Do the most outlandish ideas that you have. Those are the ones that you're scared of. Yeah, it's cute to do the little ones, but what about the really big ones that scare the almost cussed that scare you, you know? Those are the ones that also need to be represented too, not the ones that are just super easy to do because not a lot of money, the budget's small, a lot of people, whatever the case may be. Do those ideas. And like I said, keep being yourself authentically. So yeah, Tyler, he articulates his art so well because he articulates his thoughts and his processes and his morals and his ethics, whatever the case may be, so well. Whether you agree with Tyler or not, you cannot deny the fact that that man literally be on his stuff completely. One of the most iconic people I think I really resonate with. So, hey Tyler, if you're watching this, man, come be on the show. Yeah. So also with that, to kind of to get a little bit more serious, the second to last point is that you know you got to do something for the next generation. Going back to how I was talking about how Taraji was really rooting for the younger people, when it comes down to speaking up for herself in monetary wise, in the environment, and how the industry will make you not want to say anything. And it's like, oh well, I guess I do deserve this, and I guess it is no. If you know that you're more than that, speak up for that, because the other people behind you coming up are going to suffer. And also, be a good role model for your community, and not even taking a take it, to Raj or anything like that, because I think she's a wonderful woman as well as Monique. But when it all boils down to not being on the big screen, not being on Instagram, not being on TikTok, what are people literally doing in real life with their art? And I mean real life. I mean all of these communities right now that are dedicated to kids and art, right? Or even just taking art out of it, going to your homeless shelter and thinking of creative ways to give back to your community. That is what matters. And I think that the younger generation needs to see more role models that are not regarding media at all. I'm sorry. I love a good rap song. I love a good little bop to Sexy Red and City Girls, but everybody can't be Sexy Red and City Girls. So yeah, make sure that you're giving back to your community, because like I said, younger generations need something that's in their community they can see and not through a cell phone all the time, because that's a way cooler reality than what's going on the block right now. So yeah, that's I'm coming up from my soapbox. But the last, and I think, I wouldn't say the most important one, but what's really important is that when you allow yourself to speak up for whatever it is that's going on in your life, like I said, I'm not trying to make it all about art, but just in general, like it's in the workforce. You're working the 9 to 5, and your boss is doing something you don't like, or you don't care for how your coworkers are acting, or you're in the store and you see something and it's just like, what am I going to do? And when you speak up for yourself, that is your soul's way of saying, hey, like, I got something to say. And that reflects in your art. And that's how I look at art in all these projects that we do as artists, is your soul's way of trying to say something that it can't say in any other form. And sometimes that is verbally, which is why, like I said, there's so many sectors of art, painting, drawing, etc., That is your soul's way of having something to say. And if you are a multifaceted artist like I am and you do a lot of things, that's because your soul is trying to communicate in more than one ways than one, and it really wants you to listen because it has something to say and it's trying to reach somebody somewhere, but it cannot do that in just one way of life. So we'll talk about that next time in the episode balance, but I want to leave you guys with that and just really keep doing what you're doing. Speak up for yourself, speak up for your peers, speak up for things in the world that you know are not right, and sometimes there is a right side to be on. Sometimes things are not, there's no gray area. Sometimes things are black and white. So that's going to reflect in your life overall. It's going to add value to you. It's going to add value to those around you. It's going to add value to your community. And it's going to add value to whatever you choose to create. So before I hit the outro, I do want to leave you guys with something that I kind of put together to tell you. And it's pretty much that your voice is key to finding your place in the world and animating your art. It's a reflection of how much you trust yourself and how intentional you are. Your voice is your soul's way of speaking through your art, and those two need to be in harmony to maintain your creativity. And most importantly, balance your creativity. It probably won't happen overnight, as we talked about. That stuff is just a muscle memory that you have to keep practicing over and over again until you finally get it, and it's okay to start over if you trip up a few times. But your 7-year-old self and your future self told me to tell you thank you for not giving up. Thank you for speaking up for me. And thank you for truly doing what you have to do. So that's that. And now I'm going to hit you guys with this smooth outro. Sisters and brothers, I hope y'all was all right this whole entire time. So I want to let you know that this was the You Should Already Know One Word podcast powered by Friends with Imagination. And I am your host, Lola Nychole. And you can find us at Friends with Imagination on Instagram. And join us next time as our next episode is all about balance. Thank you so much for tuning in.